As I record this, it's week 4 of the AI Ambassador Program, and we're going really well. In this week, we actually got to the point where we're going to be identifying specific workflows and working on whether we do one of 3 things. Number 1 is adopt and assist process, where you get an assistant to work for you. Secondly, to automate a process and maybe move into some sort of agentic AI. And thirdly, to augment a process and keep the human in the loop and work together with the AI. So we're now getting very deep into ways that we analyze information that we have in our companies and how we use AI to make them more impactful and effective. However, we haven't got there without 3 weeks of solid foundational work. While our students are really excited that they are getting going on either creating custom GPTs or skills in Claude to build processes for what we've been talking about, I've been encouraging them to be a little more patient because you've got to have those foundations in place first. But that's where we are at this moment. I think it's been very enjoyable for everybody. I'm looking forward to sharing it with more people, and if you're interested, please get in touch. We'll be starting the second cohort in early April. So during the course of the conversation in our group chat with students, the conversation has been around some of the terminology used in AI and how confusing it can be. So today, in this episode, I want to talk about 2 of the words that crop up most consistently. Because I think we're at one of those genuine turning points in our use of AI where the language we use matters enormously. And when you get the language wrong, everything that follows gets a little bit blurry. So today I want to talk about 2 words that have become almost interchangeable in the way people discuss technology right now. And I want to argue that treating them as interchangeable is actually costing you clarity. As an aside, I use the word clarity a lot. Clarity is my word of the year when I got into 2026. And throughout the course, throughout the AI Ambassador course, I'm using this word clarity because without it, you don't get anywhere. So the 2 words we're going to be talking about are assistant and agent. I'm sure you've heard both. So how important is it? The difference between an assistant and an agent isn't about what we call a piece of software. It's about how much authority you're handing over inside your business. It's about where the human judgment stays in the loop and where it doesn't. And it's about the difference between a tool that helps you do your job and a system that is doing part of the job on your behalf. And as I'm recording this, I have Claude Cowork working on another computer doing some cleanup in one of my folders. Is that an assistant? Is that an agent? We will uncover that as we get into it. Because I think a lot of property managers and hosts right now are either using one when they think they have the other, or they're hearing the word agent and feeling a mix of excitement and anxiety, and they don't actually have a framework to know what they're actually evaluating. So that's what today is for. I want to walk through this really carefully, and we're going to ground it in real practical scenarios from our world and our industry. And that's guest messaging and owner acquisition. And then we're going to talk about something that almost nobody in our industry is talking about yet, which is governance. It's how we use this stuff. Because I think that's actually where the most important conversation is. So by the end of this episode, I want you to have a clear mental model. I want you to be able to hear a vendor say the word agent and know exactly what question to ask next. So I want you to feel confident rather than confused. So let's get into it. So let's start with the basics, because I think the clearest way to understand this is not through a technical definition, but through an analogy. So imagine you've got a member of staff. Let's call her Sarah. She's exceptional. She's smart, she's fast, she's got really good instincts, and everything she produces is excellent. You're really happy to have Sarah on your team. But she has a very particular way of working. She waits until you come to her with a task. You say, Sarah, can you draft a response to this guest complaint? And she does it brilliantly. You ask her to rewrite the house manual to be friendlier. She does that too. You ask, she delivers. Sarah is an assistant. Now imagine a different team member, and we'll call him Marcus. Marcus also has great instincts and excellent skills, but he works differently. You sat down with Marcus at the beginning of the quarter and you told him that our goal is to maintain a 4.8 review average across the whole portfolio and to reduce mid-stay complaints. So Marcus took that goal and ran with it. He's monitoring things. He's noticing patterns. He's flagging issues before they become problems. He's not waiting for you to ask and tell him what to do. He acts because he understands what you're trying to achieve. Now, you've probably got it so far. Marcus is the agent. So both Sarah and Marcus are really valuable. There's tasks when you absolutely want Sarah's approach, where you want to maintain control and you want to review everything before it goes out, where your judgment is the one that really matters and it's essential. And then there's tasks that you want Marcus working on in the background, pursuing some outcomes so that you can focus on the higher level things that only you can do. The mistake is assuming you have Marcus when, in fact, you actually have Sarah, or deploying Marcus in an area where you really needed Sarah to do the job that you just asked to be done. So let me make it a bit more concrete. An AI assistant, and this includes most of the AI tools that you're probably using right now, waits for a prompt. It responds to a trigger. It helps you do the thing you already decided to do. It's reactive in the best possible sense of that word. An AI agent, on the other hand, is oriented towards an outcome. It doesn't just execute the task you described. It works out the intermediate steps needed to achieve the goal you've defined. It can initiate actions. It can monitor, analyze, decide, and act within the parameters you've given it. And that dividing line, which is reactive versus goal-directed, is the one that really matters. So the reality is that most of what's being marketed to us as agents right now, they're just very capable assistants. And that, of course, is completely fine because assistants are valuable. And there's nothing wrong with having an excellent assistant, but you deserve to know what you have. And things have been changing rapidly over the past few months. We were talking about agentic AI 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year ago. And it was something that was out there, that was being promised to us. And there's been a lot of testing of different types of agentic AI. And whether we're here or not, I'm not sure. But true agentic AI is coming to our industry. It's not science fiction. It already exists in enterprise software. If you're using some of the enterprise PMS, you have agentic AI built into it. And it will reach the rest of us in the short-term rental space in a meaningful way over the next, I was going to say over the next couple of years, but probably at the speed this is going over the next couple of months. And when it does, the managers who understand this distinction are going to be ready to use it well. And the ones who don't are either going to underestimate it or misuse it. So I want to take this to the next step and look at what it actually looks like across a couple of areas of your business. So guest messaging is probably where most of you encountered AI in any meaningful way in the first place. So we'll start with that. Think back to the first time, if you can, that you used something like ChatGPT to help you draft a message to a guest. Maybe it was late at night. Maybe a guest had sent a really difficult message that they were really upset about something. Maybe noise from the street. Maybe they'd just arrived and found something they weren't happy about in the property, and you needed to respond really carefully. Instead of staring at a blank screen, trying to find the right tone, you typed the situation into an AI tool, and within seconds you had a draft that was calm, it was professional, it was empathetic, and you felt this real flow of relief. And that's an excellent description of an assistant doing its job. You provided the context, the AI produced a response, you reviewed it, you tweaked it, you sent it. But notice what the AI did not do in that moment. It didn't decide that a guest needed reassurance. It didn't notice a pattern across your reviews. It didn't initiate anything. It simply responded to you based on what you gave it. That's assistance, and it really is genuinely valuable. So let me stretch this scenario out a bit. Imagine instead of working message by message, you set a broader objective for your business. You decide that your goal is to maintain this 4.8 review average across your whole portfolio, and specifically to reduce complaints that fall into two categories: check-in confusion and mid-stay communication gaps. An assistant can absolutely help you once a problem arises in those areas. You paste in a negative review, it helps you analyze it. You describe a check-in complaint and it rewrites your instructions. You draft a mid-stay message template and it makes it much warmer and clearer. But an agent operating toward that goal would behave entirely differently. An agent in that scenario might continuously monitor guest communications across all your properties. It might notice that in one specific listing, maybe the cottage with the long driveway, guests are regularly mentioning difficulty finding the property in the dark. It doesn't wait for a bad review to flag that. It surfaces the pattern and suggests updating the arrival instructions. It recommends adding a photo of the driveway entrance at night. It proposes sending a proactive message to every guest at that property on their arrival day. Something like this: just checking in with you before you arrive. Here's a photograph of exactly where to pull in because we want your arrival to be seamless. It might also detect that guests who book 3-night weekend stays have a slightly higher rate of mid-stay queries. And it could suggest a proactive Saturday morning check-in message for those bookings specifically, asking if everything is going smoothly. In that scenario, the system's not waiting for dissatisfaction to occur, it's working actively to prevent it. So that's the shift from task execution to outcome pursuit, from reactive to proactive. And the moment a system starts initiating actions based on patterns it observes rather than waiting for your instruction, the nature of your relationship with that technology changes, which brings us to a really important question. When you're using AI tools in your guest messaging right now, where does the authority sit? If you're using AI to help you draft replies that you then review and send, you are firmly in control. The AI is your assistant, it enhances your output, but it doesn't act. If you set up automated responses that go out without your review, based on rules and triggers or AI-generated content, you've moved along the spectrum towards agency. Not full agency, but you've delegated something. And that's not necessarily wrong. Automated responses to common queries are efficient and often perfectly appropriate. But it's worth being really conscious of where the handover happens. You need to know exactly what gets automated and what stays in your hands. Because in hospitality, your tone matters enormously, context matters. A response that's technically correct, but it's off tonally, can do real damage. And the moment you remove yourself from that loop, you've got to be really confident in the system you've left in place. So let's talk about owner acquisition, because that's where the stakes really escalate. It's where I think the difference between assistants and agents becomes not just interesting, but genuinely strategic. So growing a property management portfolio is one of the most human-intensive parts of our work. I know this, I did this for 20 years. It's relationship-driven. It requires trust building. You need to be able to read people. You've got to understand local market dynamics, regulatory environments, owner psychology, what your competition is doing, as well as investment goals. And traditionally, it's been labour-intensive in all those logistical ways. You've got to monitor property sales, build spreadsheets of potential targets, manually research comparables, write outreach letters, track responses, follow up. And an AI assistant can take huge amounts of friction out of that process. It can draft your outreach mails. It can format rental projection reports and refine your pitch language. It can help you respond to objections. It can rewrite your owner-facing materials to be clearer and more compelling. And it can take a set of raw data and turn it into a professional presentation. All that is really valuable. But it waits. It waits for you to identify the target. It waits for you to gather the numbers, and to decide who you're going to approach. So here we go. An agent operates differently, and I love this part. Imagine you sit down and define a strategic goal for your business. You want to add 10 three-bedroom waterfront properties in a specific neighborhood over the next 6 months. You feed that goal to an agentic system along with the right data access and permissions. So that system could monitor publicly available property sales in that neighborhood. It could identify homes that were recently purchased and match the performance profile of your best existing listings. It could cross-reference the square footage, the number of bedrooms, the proximity to water, the features that correlate with high performance in your portfolio. It could also analyze comparable rental data in that specific market, not generic regional data, but real granular performance figures that are based on things that are seasonality, occupancy trends, guest demographics, and could generate a realistic revenue range for each specific property rather than a generic projection. When I think back to the years I spent in property management and now think about what I just said there, this is such an advancement in what we can do and something that wasn't even considered 3 or 4 years ago. Just think how amazing this is. Okay, I've gone off track a little, but it could then produce a customized information pack for each of these properties. Not just a template with the name swapped out, which is what we used to do, but something that references the actual street, the actual comparable properties nearby, and the actual seasonal patterns for that particular location. It could track what types of outreach are generating engagement. It could notice that owners who purchased in a particular price bracket respond better to income-focused messaging, while owners in another bracket respond better to the stress-free, hands-off management angle. It could then adjust its approach based on those patterns. So at that point, you're not using AI to draft letters. You're running a growth operation where the AI is just actively participating in your overall strategy. Does that make you excited? Does it make you nervous? Both reactions are completely valid. And the reason I think that is that the power of that capability is inseparable from the risk of that capability, and there are huge risks involved. So let me explain what I mean. When an AI assistant drafts a letter that you review before it goes out, any errors in that letter are caught before they do damage. You're the quality filter. You are that layer, that judgment layer. But when an agent is generating outreach, calculating projections, and potentially sending communications with more autonomy, the quality filter isn't you reviewing each piece. The quality filter is the system that you built around it, the constraints you defined, the context and data you fed it, and the guardrails you put in place. And that's exactly why my next topic is the one I think matters the most. So that topic's governance, and I think it's a conversation nobody's having right now. Because I see a lot of conversation about efficiency and capability and automations and demos of impressive features, and I see marketers everywhere using the word agent to signal some sort of sophistication. But what I'm not seeing in this conversation is anything about governance. And that is a real significant gap, because governance is the thing that makes the difference between AI that creates leverage and makes your life easier and AI that creates risk. And the higher the level of autonomy you're giving a system, the more important that governance becomes. So where do you start with this? It starts with a simple question. Where does human judgment need to stay in this process? Are you just going to abrogate all human judgment or just let it go off on its own merry way? For an AI assistant that helps you draft messages, the answer is human judgment's everywhere. You review everything. It helps you produce better output faster, but you remain the decision maker at every step. But as you move towards more autonomous systems, the answer becomes more nuanced. And you need to have thought it through explicitly, not just assumed it will be fine. So let's take the owner acquisition example we just discussed. If you were deploying an agentic system for growth outreach, there's a series of questions you'd need to answer very clearly before you turn that system on. So here's some examples of those questions. How conservative are the income projections it's producing? Are they based on genuine comparable data? Or are they based on optimistic averages? Because a projection that is 10% too high sent to 100 prospective owners is not just inaccurate, it's a reputational liability. A number of years ago, before I sold the property management company, I remember going out to see a beautiful property on a piece of waterway. And it was the most gorgeous property. It was beautiful inside. It had an indoor lap pool and beautiful dining area and huge bedrooms and a lovely games room. But the waterfront was a weedy swamp. Now, the new owner had bought it during the winter, so it was iced over. They could not see what was going to be revealed when the thaw came. And the realtor had told them that this property would likely fetch $7,000 a week. And I was in that unenviable position of telling them that it was going to be challenging to rent it at all in the summer because of the nature of the waterfront, and certainly not for anything over $2,500 to $3,000 per week. And yes, they may get some groups in the fall and the winter and the spring, but that wasn't the market. And there were a lot of properties out there with much better features and outdoor amenities in the fall, winter, and spring. So if you've got an AI system delivering that sort of income projection like that realtor did, that is your reputational liability. So you need to know, is your system accounting for these types of issues? Is it accounting for local regulatory restrictions? We know that short-term rental regulations vary enormously. Some neighborhoods have restrictions, some properties are in HOAs with rules about rentals. If an agentic system is generating outreach for a property that turns out to be in a restricted zone, that's not just embarrassing, could be a legal issue. And definitely more than my property, that was all about more subjective issues about quality of waterfront. But when it gets into rental regulations, now that's a different issue. Is outreach going out automatically, or is it going to require a human approval step? So there's a significant difference between a system that prepares and queues outreach for your review and one that sends autonomously, and you need to know which one you have. You've got to know the data the system's relying on and how clean that data is, how updated it is. And that's perhaps the most important question of all, because this is one of the most important things I want you to take away from this episode, and it's one that I talk to my students in the AI Ambassador program over and over again. AI amplifies whatever system it operates within, and an agent amplifies whatever system it operates within. If your data's clean, your assumptions are realistic, your processes are documented, and your goals are clearly defined, an agent will amplify that clarity and really help you scale it. But if your data's inconsistent, if your projections are optimistic, if your processes are vague and your goals are fuzzy, an agent is just going to amplify that inconsistency and help you scale it faster than any human could. Technology doesn't create maturity, it reveals it, and then it accelerates it in whatever direction it finds. So I don't want this to sound like a warning not to use these tools. It's not my message at all. But the message is the preparation you do before deploying a more autonomous system is not a barrier to using it, it's the thing that makes it safe and powerful. Because the act of preparing to deploy an agent, The act of asking these governance questions is going to force you to tighten your business in ways that benefit you, regardless of whether you ever deploy an agent or not. When you have to define your goals clearly enough for a system to pursue them, you clarify your own strategy. And when you have to articulate what a good income projection looks like versus an overly optimistic one, you sharpen your own standards. When you have to document your processes precisely enough for a system to follow them, you're creating operational infrastructure that's going to serve your whole team. And when you have to decide where human judgment must remain, you reconnect with what makes your business human. And that's a really important point. Because this industry is built on hospitality. It's built on the human capacity to make a guest feel welcome, to make an owner feel trusted, and to navigate the unexpected with grace and good judgment. None of that should ever go away, and none of that should get automated. But what agentic AI can do, when it's deployed well with good governance, is remove the repetitive cognitive labor, the tasks that require pattern recognition but not judgment. And these are the tasks that require you to give it consistently but not creativity. And they're the tasks that require volume but not warmth. When you remove that layer of repetition, the humans in your business are free to operate at a higher level. I've talked about this over and over. That AI is not taking jobs away. It's allowing the humans that remain in these businesses to operate better, to produce more, to be more satisfied in their roles, so that they can build owner relationships that a system can't build, so that they can handle the genuinely unusual guest situations that no rule set could even anticipate, and to make the strategic calls that require experience, intuition, and care. This is why I'm pursuing AI, because I think used correctly, it's going to generate creativity and make people so much happier in their jobs. So let me bring this all back to something practical, because I know some of you are listening to this and thinking, okay, this is all very interesting, but what do I actually do with it this week? So I want to give you 3 things to take away. And the first is to audit the tools you already have. You could take a conventional, traditional old piece of paper, or you could open a document, or you could use something like Whisperflow to talk to your Word document or your G Drive or your Google Doc and list every AI-enabled tool or feature you're currently using in your business. And for each one, ask yourself 2 questions. First one, is this tool waiting for me to prompt it? Or is it monitoring something and taking action without my input? And the second question is, do I review its output before it affects a guest, an owner, or a third party, or does it act directly? Those 2 questions are simple enough that will tell you whether you have assistants or early stage agents, and that knowledge matters. The second thing I want you to take away is don't be fooled by the word agent in a product description. When a vendor tells you they have an AI agent, ask them, is this system initiating actions based on patterns it observes, or is it producing outputs that I review and approve? Ask them, where does human review happen in this workflow? What does the system do if it encounters a situation outside of its training data or defined parameters? Those questions will tell you very quickly whether what you're looking at is a genuine agent or whether it's just a good assistant with exciting marketing language. And again, a very good assistant is valuable. You just deserve to know what you're buying. And as we move forward with what is becoming available to us in the AI world, you can pretty much build most of these systems yourself now. So the third thing is start thinking about governance before you need it. You don't need to have an agentic system deployed today or even to be thinking about one for you to benefit from going through the governance questions. Because the best time to think about them is before the technology is in front of you and before it's pushing you down that rabbit hole, the one that I go down way, way too often. You want to ask yourself, if I were to deploy a system that could act on my behalf in a guest communication, what would I need to be true about that system before I trusted it? What constraints do I need to set? Where would I insist on human review, and what data would it need to be working from? Ask the same things, same questions about owner acquisition, about pricing, about maintenance coordination. In fact, about any area of your business where autonomous action could have some consequences. Those questions are not obstacles to adoption. They're the foundation of AI adoption that really works. So before I close out here, I want to give you one more piece of framing because I think it'll help you navigate conversations about AI over the next year or two. We're not going to wake up one morning and find that every AI tool has been transformed into a fully autonomous agent running every aspect of our businesses. It's not how this technology is developing, in my view anyway. What we'll see, and in some cases we're already seeing, is a spectrum. At one end, you've got pure assistance. You prompt, they respond. You review, you decide. You are 100% in control. A little further along, you've got tools that propose actions, but then require your approval before executing. A system that suggests a reply but needs you to press send. A system that identifies a prospect and prepares an outreach pack but waits for you to greenlight it. This brings me back to what I said at the beginning. I'm sitting here recording this while Claude is revamping my organizational system on my desktop because it was a real mess. It's not going to go and do anything because I need to press the button to tell it to complete that task. I'm going to review it. So I'm at that stage with Claude. So further along still, you've got systems that operate autonomously within tightly defined boundaries. They can act without prompting you for every step, but only within the parameters you've set. Think of it as a member of staff who's been briefed very thoroughly on exactly what they are and aren't authorized to do, and who stays within that brief precisely. Then at the far end of the spectrum, you've got fully autonomous systems pursuing goals, and they have significant latitude in what they do. And that end of the spectrum requires the most mature governance, the clearest goal definition, and the most trust, both in their technology and the infrastructure around it. Most of us are currently operating in the first two zones of that spectrum, the assistance zone and the approval required zone. And that's completely appropriate for where the technology is and where our industry's operational infrastructure is. But I want you to be ready. What I want you to be ready for is the movement along that spectrum, because it will happen. And the managers who've thought through the governance questions, who have clean data, documented processes, and really clear goals, they're the ones that will be able to move confidently when the right opportunities present themselves. The ones who haven't will either adopt too quickly and create problems, or hold back too long and fall behind, and neither of those outcomes is what you want. So let me leave you with something to think about. The next time you hear the word agent, in a product demo, in a conference session, in a conference conversation with a tech vendor, ask one question. Is this system reacting within my workflow, or is it pursuing an outcome on my behalf? That reframes everything. Because if it's reacting within your workflow, you want to know, how well does it react? How much does it improve my output? How much time does it save? And those are the right evaluations for an assistant. But if it's pursuing an outcome on your behalf, you want to know, how clearly have I defined that outcome? What's the data it's using? Where does human judgment fit in this process? Where are the guardrails? Those are the right evaluations for an agent. They're different questions. They're different standards. You've got different levels of preparation that are required. And clarity about which one you're dealing with is a thing that lets you make good decisions. I hope this episode has made some sense for you. This topic isn't something to be afraid of. The AI tools available to us right now are genuinely remarkable. And the ones coming over the next few years, and the ones coming over the next few months, will be more remarkable still. But these remarkable tools, used without understanding, are just noise. When they're used with clarity and intention and good governance, they actually change your business, and that's what I want for you. So thank you for spending this time with me today. I think just going through this has allowed me to get more clarity on these differences because it took me a long time to really figure it out. So if this episode was useful, I'd love it if you'd share it with another host or a property manager who's trying to navigate all of this. Because the more clearly we all understand this landscape, the better decisions we'll make. So until next time. Oh, and remember, you can connect with me at any time. You can email me at heather@vacationrentalformula.com. You can connect with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You can join our AI community, and all these links are in the show notes. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Thank you for feeding my nerdiness on AI, although I don't need much help with that. See you next time.